was a radio on the Crew 3 at the time, which later became Crew 7 that crashed, and his fiancee, Bonnie Williamson. They were engaged to be married, and they'd already taken Bonnie home to meet his parents and everything, and they were going to be married as soon as they got back off of deployment. And, of course, they never came back off of deployment. But she's still a real sweet girl to this day. She named the child after her, Norman.
And I understand one of the guys had to clean out the locker and found her engagement ring and
found an engagement ring and some money that he was saving.
Right, little American flag. And she made you thing, was it her?
No, she didn't make it up. She said she might show up yesterday, but she didn't make it. She's got some health problem with her heart. She said she might be in Jacksonville for some checks at a medical center. Here she was. She had dropped by, but I didn't see her. If she did, I'm sure she didn't. She would have looked me up.
And is this the crew, or this is the...
That's Robert Hurst, the plane captain on the crew, and that was a reception for his wedding. He got married, I'm not sure the exact date, but about July of 1961, just a few months before, a month or two before we deployed. And then, so this is mostly guys that he ran around with, other mechanics and in the squadron. And myself, I was the only one from the crew that was there. And so they had their wives, and there wasn't a big group.
Was that in Rota?
No, that was here in Jacksonville.
Okay.
And of course, we surprised them after they got the reception out of the way, and they thought, oh, we're home fleet. Well, we knew where were they going, so we met them up. We got over there before they did. And they came in, we had started another hoorah, said, there, you're not done yet. It went short-shooted their bed and everything, you know. Had them all set up. But, yeah, I'd actually dated a girlfriend of his wife. One reason I was there, because the girl I was dating was a friend of his wife.
Oh, I see.
Okay.
Right there.
And a friend of his, and wrote a friend. You know, if you want to go both of those, and okay. All of them may not, the other side may not be him, but we can put them out in this.
One. We put that one on there. We'll have a little.
Went to sleep, I'll say.
Yeah, that was Liberty.
He had a hard day.
That's what you.
Okay, you want me to tell you anything about the same people that?
Oh yeah, go ahead.
Okay, as Bob Hurst and his good friend Claude Hill, they were best buddies, and Claude had already been transferred from Rota. He left the VP5 and was attached to an outfit in Rota, VQ2. So Bob was looking forward to getting over there to join his good friend Claude, and then the other one is Bob along with his new bride. Her name was actually Phyllis. Phillips was her maiden name, and they just, like I say, been married a few months before the deployment.
Okay, where's your hand?
Okay, that's just the first class retirement.
First class retirement.
Okay, these were the same bunch of guys. So Bob did live it up in Rota when he got over there and met up with his good friend again. And so they went out, tasted the wine, and bought them hats, Spanish hats to wear. And
now, and you were saying that in Rota, when you went on Liberty at nighttime, you had to wear the suit and tie.
After dark, the regulation was you had to have a coat and tie on. In the daytime, you could get away without the coat and tie. But if you were going to go out and stay out, you needed a coat and tie just to be ready to stay out. So that was a requirement. And it had been, so I was over there in 58, and I was back there in 60. The last time I was there, 68, and they still had the same requirement. There was a custom, and they thought we ought to recognize the Spanish customs. So if a guy had a coat and tie on, you knew where he was going. He was headed off base.
Well, it's kind of like nowadays, the women in the sailors over there in Iraq have to wear
they get off base. Yeah. So that's just
and that's just not a liberty shot in Rota.
Yeah, at different times because they're dressed a little differently. So
yeah, they went out. I guess they were going to go back to the base before dark at this time.
Yeah. So Claude is at the reunion. And that's two different guys. So.
Right there. My hands are clean.
Well, that's okay. I told them in and out. These are all copies I've made, by the way. I didn't bring my originals because I didn't want to.
Yeah,
If they get lost or whatever, I said, you never can tell. And just to be on the safe side, I said, I don't mind leaving the book around and out. And if somebody pulls a picture, I said, well, it's not the end of the thing. And that's a different crew. It's just at the same time period. Now, these are, you really don't get any detail on the picture. The crew of 3, which later became crew 7, had gone over to Sigonella, Sicily for a few days for some operation, and not just 3 of the crew members that crashed and died. And there's not much face detail, but if you look at them, they're silhouettes. It's the way they looked in a silhouette. Both Hurst and Anderson and Russell. That's the way they look. You can pick them out. You knew them. You'd say, that's them. Whether you see their faces or not.
Okay.
I guess that's probably my 3 best friends on that.
Oh, that's a different crew. A different crew.
Yeah.
After we go over this, I also kind of wanted to speak with someone about just talk a little bit about the basic mission of the squad.
Yeah, I figured it out, yeah.
And, well, like,
no, we give you the official version.
A lot of people don't know about things like the anti-submarine warfare, the Bay of Pigs, and all that kind of stuff.
That came later, but anyway.
It was just a couple of months after.
It wasn't very long. Of course, I left January the 15th, so.
Are these any of the guys here?
No, that's none of the guys.
Okay.
Actually, a lot of these guys, they're dead. Another good friend of mine, I got a copy of his pictures before he died. He died of pancreatic cancer just a year or so ago, and I saw him 2 weeks before he died. So I got a copy of his pictures, which is really good. Now, this is
that's the crew there?
That's the crew.
Let me get a picture of this here.
As far as I know, I was under the impression that each member of the crew got a copy of that picture, but if it did, they didn't send the picture home with their personal effects.
That's the one that's on the website there. I recognize that.
Yeah, it's the same picture. And as far as I know, I may have the only copy of the original picture, because none of the rest of the circus stuff, the family members got them, but if they did, they put them away. And
they're probably up in some attic somewhere.
Yeah.
Your stepdad.
So that those 9 guys plus 3 others are the ones that are playing.
Right. On the floor.
Okay, that's one of the guys is in that's Norman. That's Norman in the middle, I think. Isn't it? Let me see who's in the middle. That's Norman Russell.
Okay.
And that was while we were in Spain before they went, of course, to Iceland.
A week or 2 before they went to Iceland?
Yeah, it may be New Year's Eve.
Oh, okay.
And they left Spain about a week later, or 5 or 6 days after that. What they had to do for the change of command, the XO that was in Iceland flew to Rota, and then the crew, which had been crew 3, was going to become crew 7, went to Iceland to take over. And so they just do a lot of plane swapping around. At least 3 numbers have to change.
Yeah.
Crew 3 becomes crew 7, crew 7 becomes crew 1, and crew 1 has to become something else. They're not crew 1 anymore.
Some of the guys don't like that when they get their crew changed.
Yeah, they got demoted from being crew 1. Now there's some other crew. And this is part of the crew here. I don't know whether you want to put it on. It's New Year's Eve, so they were a little intoxicated at that point.
That'd be a good one.
But it was a good, you're celebrating New Year's Eve. You don't get a little intoxicated then, you might as well forget it.
And who's his Liberty Hound?
Well, I don't know for sure. His sister said it wasn't him, but I think that's the radioman that went on the crew that actually took my place. That was Al Millette, I think.
Mr. Millette.
But I'm not. His sister said she didn't recognize him. So I don't know, but if you look at the features of that and a good picture of him, it looks like the same face to me and the same ID bracelet and that if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. So I won't positively say that is. But the guy he's got his arm around was going to be his boss the next day. So he would be in charge of him. And they were very buddy-buddy there in that picture, as you can tell. So
that's because he was about to go out for liberty and he wanted to get in trouble.
Well, he was dressed up. Maybe just dressed up for New Year's.
Yeah.
But Bob Anderson was the first, the next day would become first tech. Took my place. Actually, they moved the technicians up, I don't know whether his family's aware of it, but Millette volunteered to go to Iceland because he thought there was too much temptation in Rota for a young married man. And he thought in Iceland there was no temptation, although there was always said that there was a woman behind every tree. There's just weren't any trees.
Yeah. When I was there,
I got there, I could find no trees.
When I was there a year later, they had the same thing.
Yeah. And again, still New Year's Eve. That was a big night at the club, celebrating it. And Norman Russell and a friend of his, Grover Lee. Grover later got in the Navy and did 30 years with the FBI. But he told, I think they put 30 rum and cokes in one glass. I don't know. I hope he had help drinking it.
And what do we have here?
And that's just Grover Lee with the band.
Okay.
There.
And we should get to the actual picture of the two aircraft.
The aircraft.
Yeah, we don't have too many good pictures of those.
It's on. Did Doug give you a copy of that disc?
No.
I've got a copy. I've got the disc.
Oh, if I can get a copy, that would be great.
I'll download it and mail it to you if you like. And it's got I saw the picture today, and it's got LA9 with the snow on it and Iceland and all that. So it'd be a good picture, a more fitting to Iceland.
Right.
And that's not true, but it's of myself. And this guy just came from Iceland. He was on what had been the XO's cruise, and he just came from Iceland. And myself and...
So what date did you actually do the change of command?
The change of command is actually, according to the pictures, it was January the 11th.
The day before
the day before they crashed. So if that was the official date for the change of command, he was only XO one day.
All right.
Although he had been in charge of that detachment, because even though he wasn't the XO yet, he was in charge of it. He was a senior officer there.
Right.
So he was in charge of that detachment. He just hadn't officially became XO until the change of command. So he had the old commanding officer going off and the new commanding officer coming in. Okay. And it was, of course, the change of command ceremony is always a big deal. You know, they have to go up and read their orders off and all this. It's the way I remember it. I never had to read any orders, but
yeah,
that's what the kids said. I had to have orders. You're now relieved. Kind of like, you know, when you get a new president, they go through the little procedure. Say, okay, you got it.
The Navy is very big on tradition and ceremony.
Yeah. Well, that was one of the passing in review. You know, they passed the colors by, and this was the next one is the picture of the crew of the plane that crashed.
I've got these pictures already, and I'd like to get this one. I haven't got the.
That's a pretty nice thing. I think of it.
Yeah, let me get this out and you can explain this one here.
Okay. John Good, who had been on the crew, actually went to two of his friends where they're buried in their home cemetery. They were ID'd positively, and the top picture is Norman Russell's grave in Louisiana. I didn't put the location there, but it's in, I forget the name of the little town. And he put a VP5 cap on him to take a picture of their grave. And then the bottom one is Bob Hurst, who is buried in Alabama in Family Cemetery.
Okay.
You said you already had a picture of the actor.
I've got those pictures.
That's out on the left. I couldn't positively identify any other picture, but if you look at two pictures, it looks like to me.
Yeah, that's the guy that was.
I never flew with Al because he actually took my place when I came off. He came on, so that's the reason I never flew with him, and he hadn't been in the squadron that long. This the next one is one of the crews that was in Iceland at the time, and we're actually flying the rescue, the search missions.
Oh, okay, let me get a shot of these. Oh, that's a regular photo there.
I know, it's just a better copy.
Oh, okay.
I believe that's Crew 8 that the the officer in the picture was actually in command. He was second in command, so he was actually the senior officer of the detachment after Kozak was missing.
Yeah.
And I asked him, how much input he had to do with the search. He said none. As far as telling where to look, they just told him, "Well, go fly and look here," and that's what they did. So an Air Force general, whoever, that's just my picture.
Well, let's get there.
So that was after the crew had left to go to Iceland. Another technician came out and found me on Saturday morning. I actually wasn't on the base. I was out in town. And he said, "Don," said, "your crew's gone." And I said, "Yes, they left last week." And he said, "No," said, "they didn't come back from a patrol." And, oh, no. Yeah, that was January the 13th. And on the 14th was a Sunday. They had I think every member of the detachment showed up at church in the base chapel for
Right after the
for a prayer service, hoping for their findings. But of course, anytime you go in those northern climate, there's no chance. It's not very much chance. There have been records of people, they land in the right place and just a forced landing and not a crash, just a forced landing or something. They can make a good landing if they know they're going down and things like that. But this is Bonnie Williamson, who was Norman's fiance again, and her roommates. And when I came back through Jacksonville, I left on the 15th of January, of course, and she was still hoping, of course, too, that they would not be found. The girl on the left is the Bonnie Williamson's fiance. I think I dated the other girl. I got her name written. I can't think of it.
Are you shameless?
4 years ago, and I can't remember.
Yeah, Jeff over there.
I'm amazed at how good you guys' memories are. When you're flying with these crews, when you fly and you work and you live together, it's so much like family.
Well, like I say, you don't get as much association between the enlisted men and the officers if you don't fly with them. But when you fly with them, of course, it's a different matter. You're eating together, you're working together, and side by side, and communicating, and in some cases, almost sleeping together. If you end up having to sleep on the plane or something like that, and which happened a few times.
You just want to hear?
This is just a retirement after that, a couple of days after that, retirement. And so there's no more of that much in there. That's the last one.
And did they have just a good picture of a P2 that was in here? You showed me.
Yeah, you went over it. You passed it over. It was a small picture, but it was right here. This picture. There's a picture of the plane and a list of the crew underneath it. I got full names for all the crew there.
Oh, that's a shot of this.
And a little story of how come some of them were there and why they were there. They hadn't been on the crew or.
Yeah, like Dr. Brown. He was
Dr. Brown, but his flight time in.
Yeah.
I don't remember who sent me the email. I had an email from another guy the other day. Said he went to church and I got to talk with this guy, kid there, a young kid. He said, I was born in Iceland. He said, my father was in the military there in 1961.
Wow.
I was born there in 1961, and they got to talking, and this Dr. Brown, John Brown, actually delivered him.
Oh, my gosh.
The kid that he was talking to. His name's on his first certificate.
I guess it is a small world. Sure.
And one of the officers, Badger Smith, had wanted to go to Iceland just because they thought it was a bigger ASW challenge in Iceland, more chances of to look for Russian submarines than there was in the Mediterranean.
Well, which is there? Because I hear, all right, in the Strait of Norway, is it they call it, where
Denmark.
the Denmark Strait, that's right between Iceland and Greenland, and that's where a lot of the Russian submarines come down.
That's
what they call your hunting grounds, right?
Yeah, that's what they say. Yes, they come down out of the northern waters and go through there, and that's a good place to look for them.
And what you would do, drop sound buoys.
Well, if you didn't just go out and drop sonar buoys, if you had a suspected target or something, then you start dropping sonar buoys, or a reason to look in a certain area, then you would drop sonar buoys. It would help you home in on them. But you didn't just go out in the ocean and start dropping your sonar buoys and hoping one of them would pick up something, you know. You'd be wasting a lot of sonar buoys. It's a big ocean.
Do you know how much area one sonar buoy can listen? I mean, how much?
Well, it varied depending on the water conditions, things like that, but say maybe a mile.
Oh, okay, so I thought it was a lot more. Probably the ones in the P3s are...
The more advancements, they've made advancement in them, and sonar buoys are really big advancements even there. Now, we had 16 channels, so most sonar buoys we've operated in any one area of 16, because otherwise you'd have two of them operating on the same frequency, and you wouldn't know which one you were listening to anyway.
Oh, okay.
So...
how often do you find a Russian submarine?
Back then, not that often. Well, we get a lot of, but of course, our presence there was supposedly keeping some of them underwater.
Right.
You know, so we did force a few to surface.
Okay. Yeah, I've heard of guys before where they went by a submarine at surface, and they would actually drop things down to candy and American Playboy magazine.
So once I heard they dropped some vodka down to them. I don't know whether that's true or not, or how they had a bottle. Maybe they went back and got a bottle of vodka. They didn't normally carry vodka on the flight.
Yeah, so they don't really go.
Unlike the British Navy, we couldn't handle booze.
All right. Okay. I think that'll be a big help here, because I'm trying to get a little bit more background. So many people just don't really know what the whole mission and... Well, during that time when the Cold War was at its height.
Yeah, so ASW was a big thing for 20, 30 years, you know, and the threat of the submarine, right, you know, was enough. And of course, the big thing was you try to keep a step ahead of them, you know, and finding them before they could figure out how to avoid you.
And years later, when Ronald Reagan was the president, you know, that was a big thing. It's just keep us strong. You know,
some of the secrets that were later exposed, I forget the guy's name, and that
the Hanson family, when they used to...
No, there was a single named Weston or West, or I forget his name now. I just heard it too. But one of the secrets he gave away was how to make their propellers on the submarines quiet. Well, we could make ours quiet, but the Russians were extremely noisy, and it was all in the design of them. And one of the secrets that he passed to the Russians was the design of the propellers. And after that, the Russian submarines were harder to detect. After they became quieter.
And what year around was that about?
When was that? 10 years ago when they gave away the...
Oh, yeah, okay. I know there was one family where there was a...
There was a Hanson. I remember the family. I don't think this is a family, but this is a single individual that passed the secrets, I think. Somebody could tell you the name, but I can't. It doesn't come to me right now. I'm remembering for names is not real good.
Right. So many people don't realize that the Cold War, even though it wasn't an actual war, it was so important to keep, what we're...
The threat was there. That's what it was, with their capabilities. They could get within striking distance of our cities, from just off the coast.
Right.
So you didn't want them to be able to do that. So although you were looking for them, you were really practicing for looking for them. You were practicing being able to take care of them if war did happen.
Right.
You wouldn't, of course, drop anything on them to damage them or anything like that, but you were playing cat and mouse with them.
Right. That's what they call it, the big cat and mouse game. Okay, I guess that was really good. Anything else you want to add?
I can't think of it. Of course, we had a lot of other missions besides ASW. One of the missions from flying out of the north was they wanted to keep track of all the ice packs. The ice would break up and drift south, because this is maybe more of a summertime thing. They want to know what the ice pack was because it affected shipping.
Oh, I see.
And again, you didn't want the ships running into icebergs and things like this, because the radar, most radar didn't pick up ice. which may have been another cause of the plane crash. Because
some of the icebergs were like,
well, not
700 feet.
Oh, yeah. But the thing was, when you're picking up Greenland, the coastline is ice. Right. So one of the tricks was you had to add so many miles to where you thought the coastline was. It was really 20 miles before that.
And especially if there's inclement weather, they really can't.
Oh, yeah.
The ground stops and the air starts.
You know, and necessarily, so we'll never know what caused them. But they weren't out of position. They had just decided to fly their flight backwards because of the bad weather. It was so terrible. You know, the high winds and the heavy snows, and visibility was nearly down to nothing. Just a few hours of daylight a day, and they decided to fly over. It is what we think. Is to fly over to the coast of Greenland and then turn north when they got to the coast of Greenland. But they flew too far inland and then crashed into the glacier. They didn't realize they were already hit over the.
Apparently they had no warning, probably. It was just.
Oh, no. They saw it and they were 1,000, you know, they climbed 1,000 feet immediately, but they probably only saw it a few hundred yards ahead of them.
Right.
But they were right. They knew where they were. They weren't lost. If you take their first position report they sent out, and plot that on a chart and plot where they crashed, it's right in line.
Right.
So that they knew exactly where they were, just off a few miles, and didn't realize we had hit the coast of Greenland already. If they'd been a couple of 1,000 feet higher, but everything's hindsight, you know.
Yeah. Okay. Cut.